Am I the asshole for not wanting to be called Karen? Obligatory, sounds bad but please read. And, throwaway, I was always a tomboy, so despite being named after my Aunt Karen I went by Ren since toddlerhood. Yeah, I heard the jokes. Ha ha, where's Stimpy? My parents thought this was adorable and have called me Ren for 25 years. Because of world conditions I've had to stay with them. And it got weird. I recently came out as non-binary, which I know is confusing, but my friends have taken it well. My parents said something generic like, you follow your bliss, but ever since then they've been calling me by my birth name. So it's Karen this, and Karen that. I first started laughing and saying, you mean Ren? And then stopped laughing and said, I'm just Ren, and now I'm refusing to respond when they call me Karen, and only pretend I hear them when they say, Ren, and my father took me aside and said I'm being a jerk about my real name, so am I the asshole here? Not the asshole. I recommend changing your name legally to Ren. Not the asshole. It kinda sounds like your parents are having a hard time with you coming out. Do they understand what non-binary means for you? Not the asshole. They've called you Ren for 25 years. It is your real name. It's not like you decided to go by Cathew Mosby III. And even if you did, that's your prerogative too. But they're being extra petty by refusing to call you Ren and acting like a name they've called you for a quarter of a century is suddenly invalid. Alt title: My parents won't call me by my preferred name due to their transphobia. Not the asshole, at all. Edit: corrected homophobia to transphobia. Not the asshole, your parents are subtly rejecting a part of your identity and that's not good at all. Not the asshole. And as someone who shared your original name, I think Ren sounds fantastic. I don't just think of and Stimpy love them as I do. There's also Kevin Bacon's character from Footloose, who stayed true to his principles and effected great social change. You are Ren. And if anyone argues, you should totally ask to see their manager. So let me get this straight. You've always gone by Ren, but only now after coming out as NB your parents insist on calling you Karen. Not the asshole by a long shot, your parents are transphobes. Non-binary phobes. Not the asshole if you consider Karen to be your dead name, and made it clear how you want to be called, then they should respect that. Nah. Yet. It wasn't clear in your explanation how long it's been since you came out. But I think you should all sit down together and have a talk about it. It sounds like your parents are having trouble processing this information. Given a bit of time and knowledge, if they really care about you they'll go back to using Ren. However, this is a last chance situation. If they don't see the error of their ways then they are of course the assholes. Fully expected something completely different from the title, I need to read it less. Definitely not the asshole. You have the right to be called whatever you want. For all intents and purposes, the discussion ends there. That said, it's a very suspicious change of behavior from your parents. I think you have every right to be concerned. Not the asshole. I have a non-binary friend named Lauren, but also goes by Ren. Always thought it was a pretty sweet name. Not the asshole. Sounds like they think Ren is too gender neutral and maybe feel at fault. Another discussion needs having about how you feel like they're insulting you by throwing out the nickname they've chosen for you your whole life and how they're clearly not as cool with your bliss as they imply. Not the asshole. It honestly sounds like they are purposely calling you by Karen to try and enforce a binary gender on you. If they used to call you Ren before you came out as non-binary, then it seems like they are specifically calling you Karen to try to reinforce that you were AFAB. Not the asshole. They literally only stopped calling you by your childhood nickname to misgender you and are trying to make you feel like you're wrong for catching onto it. You can try to explain the concept of dead naming to them if you think they'd be receptive, but if not, keep doing what you're doing and I hope you can move back out soon. Absolutely not the asshole. Every person deserves to use the name they are comfortable with, including and especially trans and non-binary folks. Not the asshole. The fact they called you Ren until you came out as non-binary, and have now started calling you by a distinctly female name, is disrespectful. If that is not what you want to be called or identified as, don't respond. You've been going by Ren with them for 25 years. Not something hard for them to do for you. Not the asshole. NB, here as well. I hated my birth name and used a nickname. A few years ago I legally changed my name to my nickname. It's done wonders. Not the asshole. I am in a very similar situation, you have my sympathy. Family and friends have called me Hayes since I was born, despite my birth name being Hazel. My dad has a habit of shortening almost everyone's names to one syllable, so that's just what I got called. I came out to them as NB recently, been out to friends for 7 years now, seemed like time, and started officially going by Hayes. And now they can't seem to stop saying Hazel. I think it's because they now don't have the option and so they think about it too much and get all up in themselves about it. Either way, they need to stop and spend some time practicing with you to get it right and be respectful of your identity and name. No one is offended by honest mistakes and slip-ups, but deliberate meanness and misgendering is unkind and disrespectful. Not the asshole. Your parents are essentially deadnaming you, that's transphobic and not cool. I definitely recommend legally changing your name if you can. As an aside, my best friend in university's name was Lauren and they went by Ren. I thought it was one of the coolest nicknames I'd ever heard. You could always be Ren, my favorites of birds. Cute and sweet and great builders. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. I may be biased since I'm also NB and going through something similar, but you're not in the wrong here. You're not changing your name or anything, you just identify as something different. Ren has always been your name and your parents are being assholes about it. I'm really sorry you have to deal with this. Stay strong and know that, regardless of what they say, you are the only one who has authority over who you are. Not the asshole obviously. Is there any chance that you could use the current use of Karen as an insult to convince them, or is that too risky as it could just make them dig their heels in more? You could just refuse to acknowledge them if they call you Karen. Maybe save that one as a last resort or last but one before a legal name change. Good luck. Don't envy you. NTA, and it sounds like you all really need to have an honest conversation. If your parents back you as much as you hope they do, I don't see the problem with asking them point blank if they're uncomfortable with you wanting to use a name that's been yours for the past 25 years, and asking if they're reverting to Karen because they're uncomfortable with the idea of you being non-binary. If you're worried that will blow up into an issue, then I'd maybe try pointing them to NB trans resources, and showing them other coming out stories, successes and failures. Help them see that by rejecting your identity, it's entirely possible for them to lose you, and let them know that you care about them both very deeply, and don't want that. Good luck Ren, I hope you end up with a stronger, smarter family. Greater than for 25 years. You are adult. You have a right to change your name. Not the asshole. So your parents called you Ren without complaint for 25 years and only insisted on calling you Karen after you came out as non-binary? You are not the asshole but your parents are. They have backpedaled on 25 years of calling you Ren because they're transphobic. Tell your father he's being an asshole for not respecting your name, one he's been happy using for a quarter of a century until you came out. If you're feeling spicy, pick a generic name like Albert and Martha and call your parents by those names until they get the picture. After a while they'll get how much it sucks to be addressed by a name that's not your own. And get your name changed legally. It can be a pain in the ass to do but it's worth it. Not the asshole but I was sure this was going to be a very different post by the title. NTA, they are deadnaming you and it would be just as much of an asshole thing if your deadname wasn't a meme. Not the asshole, you get to decide what you're called. Not the asshole. That's a pretty reasonable request. And pretty easy too. Not like the name is completely different, not that it should matter, but this fact made their use of Karen worse in my mind. My name is Karen, and I am not a Karen. If I knew you real life I would call you Ren because that's what you want to be called. Also change your name legally if you can afford it. NTA, they didn't have a problem before. It is how they are trying to subtly force you to not be non-binary. They may not realize this. Talk to them again about how you always went by Ren and you are confused why they are insisting on calling you Karen. Ask them flat out if it is because you are non-binary. It may lead to a growing conversation. But that calls for a lot more emotional maturity on both sides than I have, so, good luck. Legally changing the name will be great for you, but won't change the home situation and may cause more hurt feelings. Not less. Also, you have to change passport, photo ID, and other government documents, so in my opinion may not be worth the hassle. Not the asshole. Your parents are having trouble coping it seems and their response is to call you Karen, which for them is the equivalent of hitting you over the head and screaming, "You are Karen. You are a girl. Karen is your name." If I were you I'd sit down and talk to them about it, let them share their feelings, and just hash it out until you reach common ground. P.S. Ren is a cool name. It does remind me of Ren and Stimpy, but that's probably why I like it. Not the asshole. Lol, are you from California? I used to have a friend who went by Ren when I was a kid. Her parents were super religious and definitely would have reacted this way to their kid coming out as non-binary. What a bunch of assholes. Not the asshole. They are clearly the asshole for suddenly changing what they call you when you specifically asked them to keep calling you Ren and not reverting to Karen. Not the asshole, and TBH, it's extremely disrespectful and gross of your father to say that. Not the asshole, you have a right to request to be called Ren. It is disrespectful for them to not follow your wishes in my opinion. Not the asshole, at AAAALL. As a non-binary person myself, I totally understand how you feel. A separation from your birth name, sometimes referred to as a dead name, is extremely common for non-binary folk. You deserve to be called by your name, even if that name is different from the one your parents gave you at birth. I hope that your parents come around to understanding you and your identity more, and what your name means to you. Not the asshole, if it weren't so expensive I'd tell you to go legally change your name to Ren and have it fixed on your birth certificate and stuff. Just cause your parents chose that name doesn't mean you have to like it or even continue to use it. My mom almost named me Crystalline. Fucking Crystalline. If she had done that I would have changed my name the second I turned 18 because Jesus Christ, no. Not the asshole, for sure. If you want support specifically from the NB community, I highly recommend the non-binary talk sub, if you aren't already there. Not the asshole. Also, I was expecting this to be a middle-aged mum complaining about how her name is now offensive LMAO. Not the asshole. It's weird they're doing that now. Passive-aggressive, really. That was the only way I got my mom to change how she addressed me, by the way. I was 6 years on hormones, with a beard, and it was still, she. I actually stopped going out her in public because she'd pull that and people looked at her like she was insane. I stopped responding to my birth name and pronouns. It's utterly disrespectful and I still have a rocky relationship her because even now. She'll use my real name, which is actually a shortened version of my birth name, so not weird, and avoid pronouns, and sometimes slip up when she's telling me something she told someone else, showing she still acts like she's humoring me. It's not that hard and you deserve the respect. I honestly don't see how identifying as non-binary has anything to do with suddenly calling you by a different name than up till now. Especially if you didn't request it. Maybe ask them to explain. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, but your parents sure are for dead naming you. It takes literally nothing to respect someone's preferred pronouns and name. That behavior makes me so mad. Keep it up, your parents may eventually get it. Not the asshole. It sounds intentional, since they've always called you Ren. Seems like it's either them trying to get under your skin or just actively disapprove of you coming out as NB. I would maybe sit and talk with them again. Ask why they're using it and explain why you hate it, especially now that you're out. Good luck. Not the asshole. Opposite problem for me lol. My name is Serenity and my family has called me Ren since I was a baby. I've moved on from all of that part of my family and my life and I now hate being called Ren. Now I have to keep reminding people to call me by my name. You didn't ask them why they were calling you Karen all of a sudden? Not the asshole. You do you. Not the asshole. I also recently came out as non-binary and that my name is different and my parents chose to ignore it, so I'm ignoring them whenever they use my birth name. It's very simple to respect your child's preferences. Your parents are being assholes. Unless you're an asshole, not the asshole. Not the asshole. You're never an ass for defending yourself when someone dead names you.